Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be making a map update based off all the polling averages from all the states that we have. And at the same time, I'm going to address some things. My last video, there was a lot of people that weren't very happy with that one. They didn't think it was accurate. They didn't like that I did it based off the newest polls, and they were questioning, first of all, a lot of people were talking about Fox News. They said look at Fox News, look at Fox News. Even they say mostly about Georgia. A lot of people were upset that I gave Georgia to Donald Trump in my last video. However, at the same time, I want to point out that one, Fox News, I'm not going to make a poll, I'm not going to make a map update based off all the Fox News updates. I mean, it's going to be a polling average or all the newest polls, which means there's a lot of different groups, a lot of different people. The reason why I did it based on all the newest polls was because I intentionally wanted to do one based on all the polls from after the Democratic National Convention, because we are now in this final countdown for the election in general. So in general, we are in the most important phase of the campaigning. So because of that, I wanted to just for that video exclude the polls from before the Democratic National Convention, because the only like really big things that have left to happen before the election itself is the debates, which I believe it's going to happen on the 10th. There might be another one, but I'm pretty sure one's coming on the 10th. So obviously pay attention to that. We know debates do affect these elections. I mean, we saw when Biden was still in there, his performance during that debate, it just tanked him. It tanked him in all the polls, and Donald Trump was surging way ahead. Obviously, we'll have to see what happens now, but back then, that's what it was. And we'll have to see in this debate who's going to do better, who's going to win. We know we haven't really heard much about Donald Trump recently. He's just not being talked about right now. I'm sure he obviously will be talked about a lot more as we get closer to election night. Right now, I believe right now he's in Wisconsin and Michigan. Right now, that's where he's at, and I'm pretty sure as of right now, he's just campaigning in Wisconsin, Michigan. Nobody's really talking about it. Kamala Harris herself, she recently had a interview, and it was just kind of mediocre. It was just like talking, nothing much to it. So if that interview is anything to say about her performance, about what her performance is going to look like during the debate, it's just kind of going to be nothing special. That's really all I have to say about it. And that's what it's going to look like. Just nothing really catching your eye or catching your ears, really. But with that, let's also talk about everybody was talking about, oh, Harris is ahead, Harris is winning. First of all, let's look at this. So this is the national polling average, as you can see here. This is the national. So this doesn't take into account different states, electoral votes. This is just the country in general, who has more people on their side. And we can see here, according to 538, projects.538.com, that Harris is up by 3.2% as of September 1st. Real clear polling, if we look over here, they have it as a little bit closer. They have it as 1.8% up for Harris, so it's a little bit closer over here. But in general, yes, Kamala Harris, I never denied this, is ahead in the general elections. However, at the same time, first of all, this is within the margin of error for this. This is under 3%. But at the same time, it doesn't take into account different states, the Electoral College, and all of that. And that obviously does matter. So I'm going to explain this a little bit. I'm also going to we're going to look at Fox News over here. This is obviously, I'm going to look at this article I think it's from literally today. This article came from today. I looked at some latest election news, like this map, but this map is outdated. This map by Fox News does have Georgia going to the Republicans, but it was last updated back on the 7th. So things have changed since then. I will admit that. At the same time, I should also say, at the end of the video, when I'm done updating the map, I'm going to go look into a very possible chance that this election could end in a tie. That is very real, and I'll show you how. More importantly, at the same time, that just because I don't want this video to be 50 minutes long, so I'll just be putting we're just gonna be going based off of. Sorry, you guys might be able to hear my dog in the background. Hopefully you can't. But I'm going to be basing this map off of the default map. This is the default map with all the states already filled in except for the battleground states. So we can, if we like fill this in, I can reset it like that. So so we're just looking at the battleground states, and then I'll talk about that possibility. So this is where we're at right now, filling in all the states likely and lean, or sorry, likely and solid. With that, you have Democrats at 226, Donald Trump at 219. Let's start with our first battleground state, that is Nevada. And right off the bat, in Nevada, we already have clear signs for just how close this election is going to be. This election is a lot closer than people really think it is. When Biden was still in there, in general, Trump's chances of winning were 2 out of 3. Biden's was 1 out of 3. Now, it's really 50-50. It is really that close. And if we look over here, according to this really big, I should say, overall look at it, it's close, but it does slightly favor Harris. According to this right here, it says Harris wins 57 times out of 100. That is a lot closer than previous elections. Or sorry, more specifically, the 2016 election. Donald Trump almost was supposedly had like no chance of winning, and yet he won. And then I was talking about before. I was also talking about how the Democrats are always overestimated in I never said this, but in specifically the Midwestern states, the Democrats are always overestimated, and it's true for Georgia as well, like southern states, and it's true for Georgia as well, because Georgia, a southern state which is pretty strongly Republican, was overestimated for the Republicans, and that makes sense because everybody thought, oh, Georgia, that's gonna go to Trump, but it went to Biden. And I can show you that right now. If we go to Georgia, I can show you from 2020, right here. In the average, Trump was ahead. What the heck? Wait, I clicked on. There we go. Look at the head. In North average, Trump was ahead by 1%, but it went to Biden by 0.3, and that was big. So we can see the Republicans were overestimated in Georgia. It just wasn't thought that there's any chance Biden was going to win that state. If it was close, it was still going to go to Trump no matter what. It did not, however. But that's in Georgia. But in the Midwestern states, it's the opposite story. If we go to Wisconsin, this is probably one of the biggest ones. Wisconsin here, as of right now, just a little bit of a spoiler. As of right now, it's up for Harris by 1.4%. But if we go back to 2020, look at this. The average before election night was 6.7% for Biden. It only went to him by 0.7. And even bigger, look at 2016. 6.5% for Clinton, and it went to Trump. It went to Trump, even though all these polls said, every single poll said it was going to go to Clinton. And there is not a single poll on here that is below 3%. This is the smallest poll that has Clinton up. Everything else is higher than that. There's a lot of like 7 and 8s on here. Here's 13 down here. Then in the final average was 6.5, and the state went to Donald Trump. I think where those votes came from is undecided young voters for one who favored Trump, and at the same time, it's just in general that the blue wall is overestimated for the Democratic side. In general, it just is. But we can see here that even though Donald Trump is underestimated here, this just shows how it can change. Now, I'm going to keep the map based off what we do have. But I'm just saying that here is clear. I'm showing you right now. It's on your screen. How Donald Trump is underestimated in the Midwestern states specifically. And Democrats are always overestimated in those states. In the southern states, at least in previous elections, Donald Trump has been overestimated. He's been proven that he can lose those states. So Georgia, Arizona, those southern states can go Democratic, even though they usually go Republican, and the Midwestern states are always overestimated for Democrats. So it can change, but that's just how it is. And this is what I was talking about in my last video when you guys were confused / not liking what I was saying. But I'm just saying this is what I was talking about. So going back to 2024, obviously. Now, we saw the national polling averages, how with national polling, Harris is up. So, yes, in general, in the overall country, Harris has more people supporting her. Looking at previous elections here, if you look at 2012, pretty much all of the Midwest, Iowa and Ohio included, went to the Democrats. Look at 2016. Almost the entire thing goes red, except for Minnesota. and Illinois. That's it. All these other Midwestern states went to Donald Trump. And while we're at it, let's take a look at this article. So I'm just going to scroll to the bottom right here. The surveys released Wednesday find a close two-way Harris-Trump race. Harris is up by 1 percentage point in Arizona and 2 percentage points in Georgia and Nevada, while Trump is up by 1% in North Carolina. All are within the margin of sampling error. What that means is, if it's under 3%, it's too close to call, really. If the polls say that it's under 1%, it's still too close to call. It could go either way. Even though there's a better chance it will go to the one that it's saying, it really could go either way. And that's what they mean by that. So, let's just get through this now. At the end of this video, I will talk about the possibility for a tie. And this election really has a lot of ways this could end in a tie. And it's going to be close. And if this ends in a tie, I'll explain what happens next and who's probably going to win. Anyways, let's start with Nevada now. I was already over here. I was already talking about Nevada. It's going to be, the RCP average is a tie. Again, showing you just how close this election really is. So we'll just go with the newest one, and that has Trump up by 1%. There you go. So just by looking at that, we'll put it as lean Republican. Let's go to Arizona. Arizona, we have two new polls from recently, just the last couple of days. One is Trump up by 3, one is up Trump by 1, and in general, the RCP average has Donald Trump up by 0.5%. That is within the margin of error as well, but based on what we have, we'll be putting it as lean Republican. Now we get to the blue wall states, and I'm just going to tell you it right now. Big news here, especially from Pennsylvania, which is super important. Kamala Harris has flipped all 3 of these states, so she has now, in the polling averages, immediately flipped back all 3 of the blue wall states back to blue. Up until now, all 3 of these states were at 1 point red, and then one by one, Michigan was the first, I believe, and then Wisconsin both flipped blue. Pennsylvania continued to lag for Trump, but now in the newest averages, we'll look at it right now. Here's Wisconsin. The newest average has Harris up by 1.4%. In Michigan, it has Harris up by 1.1%. And then over in Pennsylvania, the newest polling put together has Harris up by 0.5%. So based on what we have, it does have these states to go to Kamala Harris, and with that, she will win the election with 270 exactly electoral votes. With 270 exactly, it will go to Kamala Harris. North Carolina, we'll just take a look at that. North Carolina, right here. It's also quite close. We have 3 new polls in a row that have Trump up by 1%, but in general, the average has at 0.6, so it's going to be lean Republican. Now, Georgia, the state that everybody was talking about, all blah blah and all that. Let's look at Georgia. So, yes, here's the Fox News that gets talking. Fox News has Harris up by 2%. Again, that's still within the margin of error. This one has it up by 1%, and here we have this one, which is a tie. The RCP average, however, still has Donald Trump up ahead by 0.2%. Look down here. See how close it really is. But despite that, at the same time, so we can see here, just look at, Donald Trump was up by 0.7% here. It went to 0.1, then to a tie, and then Donald Trump pulled ahead again with 0.1%. It's very close, but based off what we do have, it will go to Donald Trump by that margin. So now, this is your election. Kamala Harris will win the election with 270 electoral votes based off all the polling averages that we have, but all of them are within the margin of error. So it could go either way. And because of the fact that we know Donald Trump is always way underestimated in the blue wall states, which he has won all 3 of them before, we know, especially Wisconsin, that's a big one, and Pennsylvania is the most important one, that we know, and he won these 3 states when they were well beyond the margin of error. Like they were well into the likely region for Clinton back in 2016, and he still won them by a lean margin. But at the same time, we know that Arizona and Georgia are overestimated for the Republicans, so we can see how that's going to change. So there's a chance the election could look something like this. Could look like that. that would give Donald Trump the win with 285 electoral votes, and it would be like a flip. Arizona and Georgia, these stronghold Republican states, would turn blue, and these 3 states would turn red. So let's flip this back now, based up back to what we had. But more importantly here, notice how 270 electoral votes. That is 1 electoral vote away from her not winning. But more importantly, all that would require for this to become a tie would be for the 2nd district of Nebraska to turn red. And it could. It very well could. It's very close. It only goes Democratic by a lean margin. So if this happens, look at that. 269, 269. Just by that margin alone, Donald Trump can prevent, as long as he wins his usual states and does not win the blue wall, he can flip, or sorry, not flip, but he can turn this election into a tie. And I will explain now what happens when there is a tie. When there is a tie, first of all, the popular vote is discarded. The popular vote doesn't matter. Second of all, when there's a tie, there's a video. I'm not gonna watch it. I'll show it to you, and I'll put the link in the description. But there's a video that explains this very well. Just give me 1 second. Here you go, guys. This is the video right here. It's by CGP Gray. It's 11 years old, but it's an excellently made video, and it explains very well what happens if the Electoral College is tied. Long story short, you can go watch the video yourself. I'll put the link in the description. But long story short, what ends up happening is that the House will decide who the president is. The Senate will decide who the vice president is. And here's the thing though. They don't have a vote on it like normal. Instead, it's by state. So basically what will happen is all the representatives from each state will get together, and they'll have to decide who they're voting for together as for their whole state. So each state basically gets 1 vote. Think of it like that. Each state will get 1 vote to pick who becomes the president. Here's the problem though. Because if they do that, then a big state, California, with 54 electoral votes, it's a major start off for the Democrats. 1 state, and the Democrats already have 54 electoral votes on the board. But this state will now be equal to North Dakota, which has 3 electoral votes. They will both get 1 vote. And let's just count them now. How many Republican states are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. I've already counted Ohio. I'm not sure. It's 27 or 28. So 28, let's just say it's 28. Either way, that means that there are more Republican states than there are Democratic states on the board. That means that when those states get together, when those representatives from all those states get together and they have to pick who they're going to vote for as an overall state, then that means Donald Trump will have a significantly higher chance of coming out with the win. Because if he can tie this election by flipping this 1 district in Nebraska, if he can tie this election, he's almost guaranteed to win, because he will have more states that voted for him, and will have Republican congressmen, if you will, and when they get together to decide, hey, who are we voting for? When they get together, they'll decide, hey, who are we voting for? And they'll have no choice but to pick Donald Trump. Or, well, not no choice, but they just will. And even states like Illinois, because of the different counties that are in Illinois, even a state so blue like Illinois could turn red like this. Because the different counties, there'll be more Republican counties than there are Democratic counties, and they'll flip, and they'll overdo the will of the blue county people, and then so Illinois will flip red. So it's a big thing that can easily sway this election, and it will cause Donald Trump to easily win the election if there is a tie. But more importantly, here's another interesting fact. This doesn't really change the presidency, but the vice president is decided by the Senate. If the Senate, and because the Senate right now is probably gonna stay blue. I should mention it. It's not the House of Representatives right now. It's the incoming one. I haven't looked at it, but I'm not quite sure what the Senate is gonna look like. For right now, I haven't really been paying attention to that. I will later on. But if there are more Democratic senators than Republican senators, when they pick when they pick the vice president, no, actually I have to look this up. I'm not sure if it's the next Senate or the current one. I know it's the next House. It's not the current one. It's the next House. I'm gonna look up right now if it's the next Senate. Okay, I got the answer. It's the new. It is the. I based off what I read, it said the new Congress, which I guess would then include the Senate. So it's the new Senate and the new House that make this decision. So the new Senate, and assuming it stays Democratic, will pick the vice president. Now think about this. Because the House is likely to stay Republican and the Senate might possibly stay blue, think about this. Donald Trump, if there's a tie, will almost guaranteed be the president. But the Senate, which is blue, will pick the vice president. And if you think about that, that means there's actually a good chance. If this election is tied, there's a very high chance, there's an almost guaranteed chance that Donald Trump is the president, and there's a pretty good chance that his vice president will be Kamala Harris. Think about that. So Donald Trump will become the president. If there's a tie, Donald Trump will become the president, and there's a good chance his vice president will be Kamala Harris. Just think about that for a second. So that's basically how it works. And if it ultimately comes down to it, if there is a tie again and they can't decide because it's 50 states and there's 100 senators. So if it's a tie and if the House can't decide who becomes president, if it's a tie again among the states, then the vice president picked by the Senate will become the acting president until the House can make their mind up. If both the House and the Senate end in a tie again and they can't pick a vice president or a president, then the House Speaker will become acting president until they make up their mind, basically. So that's basically how it works. And let's look at this article now right here. This article kind of explains how it really worked and how there could be a contingent election in 2024. And there's a good possibility for the way this election is playing out for there to be a tie. We look at this map right here. This is kind of showing you a possibility of how it can happen. So they have Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia for blue, and Michigan and Pennsylvania for red. So basically what they did is they had this stays blue, and then they flipped these states blue, but these states went red. And there you go, 269, 269. So there's a different ways that this could happen. And in general, it goes on to, this article basically just explains by CNN, continues to go on to explain what I just said. And here we have some other possibilities. Look at this. Harris wins the states Biden won in 2020, except Trump takes back Michigan and Pennsylvania. That's what I just showed you guys. That's one way. Harris wins the states Biden won plus the 4th electoral vote in Maine, but Trump takes back Pennsylvania and Georgia. So Trump wins Pennsylvania and Georgia, loses the other states and Maine. It will be a tie. And if Harris wins the states Biden won plus North Carolina, but Trump takes back Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, then again, and also wins Nevada, it will be a tie. So basically what this shows you simply is there are a lot of possibilities for there to be a tie. And the simplest way is just for Harris to win all these states that she usually wins, Trump to win the states that he usually wins, plus Nevada, and for him also to flip the district of Nebraska, 2nd district. What the heck's going on here? There we go. And with that, that's another possibility for you to have 269, 269. That's just a possibility. The map that you guys actually have to look at for right now is this, where this will be blue. And with that, this is your current prediction. Kamala Harris, based off all the polling averages, is expected to win the election with 270 electoral votes exactly. And there's a lot of but it's all in the margin of error, so there's a good chance Donald Trump will still win this election. But right now, Kamala Harris is the favorite to win, and there's a good chance we could have a tie. And if there's a tie, Donald Trump is almost guaranteed to be the president, and there's a chance his vice president could be Kamala Harris. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Anyways, but with that, I'll see you guys next time. That's all for today. Bye.